Welcome back to Stab the Dragon Productions for episode number 128, book review number 15, and this is a fiction book, fiction number 4. I guess you could classify it as science fiction. Today we're going to be looking at General Mick Ryan's novel, White Sun War, The Campaign for Taiwan. Oxford, Casemate Publishers, 2023, 340 pages. I read this book the first week of September 2023, and today is September 13th, 2023. My overall evaluation is that this book is outstanding. Along the way, we will be enjoying a drink from Kavalan Distillers. They are out of Taiwan. It is the only distillery in Taiwan. This is a Kavalan single malt called ex-bourbon oak. So it was aged in formerly bourbon casks. And as always, I've got my Topo Chico here. Now, who is the author? Mick Ryan. From the CSIS, that is Center for Strategic and International Studies, from their website, Mick Ryan is a retired Major General in the Australian Army, a graduate of the Johns Hopkins University School of Advanced International Studies and the U.S. Marine Corps University Command and Staff College and the School of Advanced Warfighting. He is a passionate advocate of a professional education and lifelong learning. He's commanded at the platoon, squadron, regiment, task force, and brigade levels. January of 2018, he assumed command of the Australian Defence College in Canberra, Australia. In 2021, he was an adjunct scholar at the Modern War Institute. Mick Ryan was made a member of the Order of Australia for his leadership of Australia's first reconstruction task force in Afghanistan. He completed his 35-year career with the Australian Army and transitioned to the Army Reserve as a Major General on February 27, 2022. His first book, War Transformed, was published on February 15th of 2022 by U.S. Naval Institute Books. In short, he knows what he's talking about. Now, what is the intended audience for this book? I said that it was science fiction. This book is definitely directed at the military crowd primarily, politicians and industry leaders secondarily, and the general public who are interested in the future of war. If you are active duty military, E1 through O10, you ought to read this book. If you're a freshman congressman, senator, presidential candidate, foreign diplomat, or bureaucrat in the government, you need to read this book. If you're working in the defense industry, and here in Fort Worth, we have a lot of defense industry, or tech fields, you need to read this book. I've got friends here that I go to church with who work in the defense industry at Lockheed or Bell Helicopter that I'm definitely going to recommend this book to. I've already got a retired Air Force colonel who wants to borrow the book at church. I will likely place it in my church library. It's not your typical church library fare, but church library is a little bit different than others. So again, the genre of this book, I've said is science fiction, but it's very near future. The war that he predicts happens in 2028. So one of its main points of focus is the technology that we have now that is doable soon, just kind of the next half level up from what we've already got. The author uses an interesting approach in that the book is written as a history of the war. The date of authorship of this future history is 2038, so they're looking back at the Chinese-Taiwan War of 2025. Is that right? No, 2028. That's the date of the war. So the major themes. First, this book is a clarion call to America, Taiwan, and their allies, Australia, Japan, uh, that go to war with with the People's Republic of China, that's coming soon, and we'd better get ready. Secondly, he stresses the role of high technology in this coming war, and that we need to get the upper hand in AI, robotic war machines for ground combat, as well as air and sea drones, information warfare, electronic warfare, and space war. So to the Space Force. Third, he emphasizes the ground war, infantry, cavalry, artillery, and all the technology the foot soldiers and cav troopers need in order to fight, survive, and win in the next war. Fourth, he emphasizes the human element in this high-speed, high-tech, computerized robotic war. It always comes down to boots on the ground, a grunt with a rifle and a bayonet. The sacrifices, the blood, the weariness that is also a part of the war. And in this war, it requires smart soldiers who think fast and react quickly to changing variables in the technology and violence of future war. Now, there are some problem areas in the book that who am I? I'm Joe Nobody. But I found some areas that I think are problems. The first one, very minor, but it's nitpicking for sure, but here you go. He frequently confuses an American cav troop with a cav squadron. He uses troop and squadron interchangeably to depict one particular unit, and that's just a mistake that if you're in the Army, you'll catch that and it'll irritate you. Because the main story is about a U.S. Army cav troop. It's a company-sized element of 100 to 150 soldiers, somewhere in there. A cav squadron is more like a battalion with 500, 600 soldiers, right? Now, the second complaint I have is that the book simply is not gritty enough. And here, I would refer you to the military science fiction books of Michael Z. Williamson or Tom Kratman. Yeah, I've got Tom Kratman right here. Or Taylor Anderson right here. So the book, this is, I think, his first novel. And so the writing style is not really polished like some of these other authors who've been writing military science fiction for decades. But so the writing style is just really not gritty. Okay, but again, that's a minor complaint, minor. The third complaint, though, is major, and it's about the plot, and this is a bigger concern. And it's a bit of a spoiler alert, but seriously, how can you totally leave out North Korea from the war in any realistic scenario? I don't know. I mean, North Korea is not involved, and I don't get it. Now, granted, the author is a general. He's got all kinds of mega experience, and I'm just Joe Nobody. But I read the news. I follow military news very carefully. I am a vet, and so I have kept track. I've kept up to date as much as I can. And it seems to me that the Fat Missile Boy in North Korea will be used by the PRC to open a second front to keep us busy in Korea while the PLA liberates Taiwan. So that's just me. Now, I've got another complaint, number 4. This book needs to be twice the length. At 340 pages, it's very concise, and to me, it's too short by half. There you go. That's my final complaint. So let's do a little comparisons here. What would this book compare favorably with? Back in the late 70s, early 80s, 1978 was when it was published. The Third World War by Sir John Hackett, a British author. And I read that in college when I was in ROTC, right? And that book was chilling. Now, for a brief, concise book, it also compares, when I say it compares favorably with Tom Clancy's book, Red Storm Rising, it's in the same genre. Okay, that's what I mean. He's not Tom Clancy, the author, right? Clancy's the master. But if you read either Hackett's book or Clancy's, then I think you would like this book. by General Ryan. So, the writing style is not on par with Clancy for sure. But the subject matter and the intensity, I think, compares favorably. And again, this is Ryan's first novel, so it's not as artistic or fluent as other seasoned authors. But if you like that genre, if you like David Drake or Hammer Slammers, let's see, who else? I've already listed Taylor Anderson and Tom Kratman. Those guys, those authors, if you like that kind of stuff, you should like this book. Now let's go to the plot. The book is written as a history book, again, from 2038, looking back at the or 2035, looking back at the war between China and Taiwan. The method that the author uses as future history, I think, would work better with more detail, hence needs to be longer, and the Clancy effect. Clancy was great about details. I think we need more details here to convince us it's future history. The plot follows several individuals through the war from the Chinese side, the Taiwan side, and the American side. So we get their individual experiences in the war, we get their knowledge backgrounds, the tech that they're using, their feelings, their sights, sounds, and smells of combat. Part of the plot involves showing the miscalculations of each of the three nations involved. On page 61, we get this from the Chinese perspective. The Americans, after decades of lethargy in the Pacific, are beginning to show signs of building a force that might be able to successfully intervene in any military operations around Taiwan. For years, they have postured and debated, but done little to develop the kinds of technologies on long-range expeditionary forces that would be needed to deter us. American operations in Iraq and Afghanistan have been a useful 2-decade distraction from our perspective. Woof. General Ryan nails it right there. Absolutely nails it. The Islamic problem was real and needed addressing after 9/11, but somehow we managed to do it all wrong. We ignored the larger threat that was China. We spent so much money on operations that we didn't put it into research and development, and so now China's a peer. They are not a near peer, they're a peer. Ryan then points out the demographic problems that China has, which is pressing them to act on Taiwan before the 2030s hit. There's a demographic problem because of the one-child plan in China for 2 generations. And so now they're going to hit a sharp decline in their population as their population ages, right? So that hits in the 2030s. So yeah, the war is going to have to happen before then. Now, Ryan is at times brutally honest in his evaluations. And I just read that one quote where he says the American operations in Iraq and Afghanistan have been a useful 2-decade distraction, right? Well, here's another one. Page 81, and this is about his nation, Australia. Quote, they produce good soldiers, but their political class is reluctant to commit combat forces. They're running an old fleet of Collins subs. Their messing about with different submarine programs in the past 15 years has led to nothing but old boats, lots of expenditure, a lack of investment in other more important military capabilities, and upset allies. It's unlikely the Australian Small Defense Force will be much use to us, the USA, if anything happens. And I've read up on this problem he talks about. The Australians had a contract with France to build some nuclear subs, and then they backed out of that contract, upsetting the French after spending billions of dollars or whatever Australia uses for currency. And then they went with the Americans, and the Americans are supposed to provide them with nuclear subs. And so they have nothing right now, except I guess these old Collins subs, and I'm not familiar with them. But yeah, there's been a lot of mess ups going on with the Australian. I know their government has been liberal and then reacts to a little conservative and then back to liberal. Now, one of the issues that Ryan points out for the Americans is our lack of unity, some of which is due to China's meddling with our social media and press. Imagine that. Some of it's due to the political divide in Congress. Oh, do tell. This I thought he treated too easily. Again, he needed to expand on it. I thought he should have been a lot tougher on the Dems, who are traditionally weak on defense and pro-commie. So he kind of spread the love around between the Dems and the Republicans, kind of lumped them all together. And yeah, the Republicans are guilty of a lot of stupid stuff. Invertebrates. But the Dems are flat out commie, right? On page 185, the American media, as usual, had been split between condemning Chinese aggression and calling for a ceasefire before all-out nuclear war broke out. The Western media, a shallow lot, Zhang thought, so this is from the Chinese perspective, could always be relied on to help. Did you get that? The Western media, a shallow lot, could always be relied on to help. As Zhang predicted, the fractious relationship between the American people and its media had played out largely to China's advantage. There you go. He calls it the way it is. Absolutely. He nailed it there. Another issue, one that we're seeing in Ukraine, is lack of ammo. The consumption rate for ammo in war is always much greater than planned. Ryan's talking about this in the book. Right now, the U.S. is critically short in everything from 155 millimeter shells to cruise missiles. Everything that Ryan does shows a couple of ways that America could get more ammo quickly through preparing and organizing the defense industry and through some high-tech wizardry at Area 51 that he only briefly touches on. Okay, yeah, there's some stuff going on there that I've seen from other sources. Alien tech that we've appropriated and are using to produce some stuff. So he touches on that, which I found fascinating because normally, you get that stuff from sources that are unreliable or sources that are conspiracy theory types. Okay, but he actually goes there, he touches on it, and it shows me that he knows more than he's willing to say in this book. Absolutely. So he approached that line, but he didn't step on it. And again, I've seen multiple other sources that says the U.S. has got some super secret stuff recovered from crashed UFOs and such. So, he heads in that direction, but he doesn't go to the line. Now, Ryan does state that Hawaii gets hit with missiles. No nukes yet. No nukes were used in the war. Japan and Guam also got hit. But oddly, way too optimistically, no U.S. aircraft carriers were sunk. And I think that's a mistake in the book. No carriers get hit. I don't know about that. These things needed more space than he gave to it. I guess he wanted to keep the book under 400 pages. I'm a Clancy fan. I'm a David Weber fan. So those 1,000-page tomes, I think, are great, right? But though this novel was too short by half, I really needed to be expanded. Maybe a volume 2. There you go. In some ways, the major theme of the book is about the technology of future war. And one of the best summaries of this is on page 205. Quote, I worry that the overuse of these robots will deprive the war of the humanity it so desperately needs. So much for Asimov's 3 fucking laws. Yeah, Asimov was way too optimistic, okay? Writing 70 years ago. This book did something that most of the military sci-fi books I've read do not do. He shows the stark reality of a massive use of drones and robots in combat. Technology is our friend until it kills us. Well, in conclusion, this book is outstanding. Not because General Ryan is a great writer like Clancy or David Weber or Tom Kratman, Michael Williamson, David Drake, John Scalzi is actually mentioned in the book somewhere, I think. There are a ton of very good military sci-fi authors out there. This book is outstanding because it's prescient, it's prophetic, it's realistic, It's an urgent call to this country and allies to get ready because the war is coming soon. The mission of this author and book is important, and it must be heeded. I pray this book ends up to be totally wrong, but I doubt it. If anything, I'm afraid he's way too optimistic. So thank you, General Ryan. Pray to God that this stuff does not happen. This is Stab the Dragon, out here in hoc signo vincis.